Welcome to today's video on water in Earth's system. We're going to talk about water cycle, ocean, circulation, and topography. So why is water important in Earth's systems? Well, there are many reasons, but I've listed just a few here. First of all, water creates and weathers rocks, so it's important in the rock cycle. It helps mineral deposition, creating minerals and rocks, and it even alters rocks as well. It weathers rocks through acid rain and through freezing and thawing cycles. When water gets into cracks into rocks and it freezes, it can break rocks apart. Erosion and mass wasting is also caused by water as well. So water can move soil from one area to another, and then when that soil or that piece of land is unstable, it can break off and slide down through mass wasting or landslides. Water also determines soil productivity along with its nutrient and mineral composition. We already talked about flux melting, where water is forced out of a subducting plate and lowers the temperature of the melting point, and therefore magma can be produced. Water, of course, is necessary for all of life's processes, and we use it as resources, not just for our own life processes, but in industry, in the creation of energy, and for many, many other reasons. So the water cycle is very familiar. It's just how water cycles throughout the earth and into the atmosphere. So we can start out with evaporation. During evaporation, we have liquid water, which evaporates or turns into water vapor. This is because the sun emits solar radiation on the earth, causing the temperature or kinetic energy of the water on the surface in lakes and streams and rivers to be able to escape those bonds of the liquid and then rise up into the atmosphere as a gas. So that's what evaporation is. Another form of evaporation comes from plants through transpiration. So transpiration is when water escapes from plants. Water is a byproduct of photosynthesis, so this is also powered by the sun as well. So a byproduct of photosynthesis, it escapes through the plant's pores, just tiny little pores in its leaves and in its structures, and then it can also rise up as a gas into the atmosphere. That's called transpiration. So evaporation and transpiration, then those gases go up into the sky and we have condensation. In the atmosphere, water vapor can condense. So this process is called condensation. And this is when the water vapor or the gas will then turn back into a liquid. And the reason it's doing this is because the air is cooler. The cooler air can't hold as much moisture in it, so it condenses into a liquid around particles, microscopic particles of dust and dirt in the air, and that forms a nuclei of the condensation particle. So now we have water droplets that can form clouds. This is condensation, and when those water droplets get larger and bigger, the force of gravity acts on it and it falls back to the earth in the form of precipitation. So this is rain and snow, sleet, hail. As it forms precipitation and goes down to the earth, it can fall on mountains, which can accumulate in snowpacks over time into glaciers, or water can also fall on mountains as well on what's called a drainage divide. And the drainage divide determines which direction water is going to go. And all of the directions that water goes into streams and lakes and rivers, this is called a watershed. So the watershed is just an area where precipitation catches and then gets distributed into different tributaries and eventually ends up in the ocean. Okay, so from there we have runoff. So that's rain or precipitation that just runs across the land wherever it's going to go. If it infiltrates into the ground, then we call it groundwater. Okay, so water on the surface is called surface runoff, and then we have water in the ground, which is groundwater. From there, the cycle can start all over again and evaporate into the air. So this is why it's called a water cycle. Next, we'll talk about ocean circulation. It's determined by a temperature gradient in the ocean and trade winds. So let's address the temperature gradient first, and upwelling and downwelling. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the land over here off the coast, and then we also have water. So here's the ocean coming off of the land. So what happens then is the sun heats up the surface temperatures of the water. We have a wind that comes off the coast that is blowing this surface water to a different area, carrying it with it, the warmer temperatures. And so what happens then is that this water goes away and the cooler water from deeper in the ocean upwells, or it comes up to the surface in order to replace that water. So that's called upwelling. When the water goes toward the poles and it's a colder temperature, the water becomes more dense and it sinks, and that's what's called downwelling. So we have this circular pattern of upwelling and downwelling, and this is due to the temperature gradient in the ocean. The next thing that determines ocean circulation is the trade winds. In the northern hemisphere, wind tends to blow from west to east, and then in the southern hemisphere, it tends to blow from east to west. Now, this is typically going in straight lines due to the rotation of the Earth. However, what it appears to us on the surface of the Earth is that the wind is curving. So this is a phenomenon due to the fact that the Earth is a sphere. You can imagine being on a merry-go-round, and if you stand in the center, then you would be spinning around in a very tight circle. But if you stand on the edge, you would be spinning around in a larger circle and you would feel more wind on you. Another thing you could do is throw a ball across the merry-go-round, and the ball would go in a straight line. However, because you are spinning, it will look like the ball curves. So that's a kind of a mind trick that is not actually real. The ball is not curving. It's just because you are spinning that the ball seems like it's curving. So this is similar to trade winds. That is called the Coriolis effect. So this effect makes the winds appear that they are curving in different areas of the Earth. So in this image here, we see the directions that the winds are moving according to the Coriolis effect. Also, due to high and low pressures, the wind will also blow in different directions, and it's different from the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So this is what determines trade winds. So that, in coordination with the temperature gradient in the ocean, is what causes ocean circulation. What results are large areas or currents around the globe in the ocean of warm and cool water. And this is called the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. So I think of Nemo when the turtles are going on the East Australian Current, and this is due to these big, huge streams through the ocean that are carrying hot and cold water. This is affected by the temperature gradient that we talked about in the ocean, the wind along the coasts, and the trade winds. And so we have these big conveyor belts of hot and cold water that are traveling around the globe in the oceans. Finally, we'll talk about how topography creates areas of wet and dry on the Earth. And so what we have here is the windward side of a mountain. And this is where the prevailing winds or the trade winds come in off the coast, bringing with it air that is warm. That warm air rises up the mountain or the hill, whatever the topography is here, that is creating this barrier. As the air rises, the water in the air is not able to be contained, and so it forces that water out in the form of precipitation. So that is why it rains often on the side of the wind coming in off the mountain. So I was just in the big island of Hawaii and on the Hilo side, which is one of the rainiest cities in the world, I think. And every day I was there, it rained and it was really cool. And this is because it is on the windward side of the island. And we have this huge mountain that goes through the middle of the island, Mauna Kea. And if I just drove an hour and a half or so to the other side of the island, then we had very dry and sunny side in Kona. So what's happening here is that the cooler air is forced over the mountain and then begins to descend, and it warms as it descends. And this forces evaporation, which causes what's called a rain shadow, where there is not as much precipitation. And we often get deserts on this side of a mountain. This happens also here in Oregon, where we live, where George Fox University is, where we have water coming up from or air coming from the Pacific Ocean. And then we have mountain ranges, the Cascades and the coastal ranges. And then on the eastern and central side of Oregon, we have high desert where there is not much rain at all. And so this is what is called the rain shadow effect. And this creates areas of wet and dry climates. It also determines microclimates along the same latitude. In summary, we talked about the water cycle, ocean circulation, and topography. With the water cycle, we saw that it played a role in the rock cycle, and it determines water availability and helps to regulate climate. Ocean circulation also helps to regulate global climate, and it aids in nutrient cycling within the ocean, which then determines migration patterns and other phenomenon in the ocean. Topography determines climate variation along a certain latitude. And so what you'll notice is that this plays a role in climate, which is what we'll talk about in a different video where we address solar radiation. So I hope that this helps understand more about water in Earth's systems. We'll see you next time.